So we're really excited today. This is our first 10-minute episode with somebody who's actually not in the U.S. or Canada. So we're actually, this is actually Saturday night in the U.S. It's after 10 p.m. where Kate is, so she may fall asleep on us midway through the show. Or pass out drunk. Or it is Saturday night, so she may pass out drunk too. That's typical. But we're excited here. Over here, or actually below me today, we have the co-hosts of the Daily Dribble podcast, all the way from Tasmania, Australia. Please welcome Nick and Ro. Thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you very much. No, we really appreciate it. We are super excited to get the opportunity, and yeah, it's a bit of a privilege to be the first kind of, I guess, act outside of the US.
So I'm going to kick it off with the first question.
Go for it.
Have you ever seen a Tasmanian?
Why would you go there?
Here we go. Okay.
Well, he was in Space Jam.
Well, yeah, that's true. It's kind of nice to have a little bit of, I guess, to be known, because sometimes, when people think of Australia, Tassie are kind of, left out to a certain extent. So it's kind of nice to be still be remembered down here.
For example, I went over to the States a few years ago and there was a map of Australia and Tassie wasn't even on it. So that sort of says
the forgotten bunch.
To be honest, until the other day when I started working on this, I didn't even realize that you were officially part of Australia. So I mean, it's
not
definitely
the only one.
It is not taught in the schools here. Then again, a lot of things are not taught in the schools here.
That's good. We can be trailblazers in their own right then, can't we?
Yes.
A little bit.
We can be educational too sometimes. So
absolutely.
Sure.
We'll jump right into it. So how did you guys meet and why a podcast?
Yeah, so certainly. So for myself, I initially started the podcast by myself, and I met Ro. We also have a third host, Lee. He's brothers with Ro here, but he was unfortunately unable to make it today. But I'm actually partners with their sister. So we've known each other for a couple of years now. And yeah, I started the podcast by myself, but was, I guess, kind of needed some co-hosts, needed someone to bounce off. And yeah, the Ro and Lee were perfect candidates for that with already a kind of existing relationship.
Yeah, and I guess from my perspective, Nick was doing the podcast on his own and he was doing a really good job. And I was actually quite envious of the fact that he had his own basketball podcast, because it's something that I really wanted to get involved in, like even a few years ago. But when he sort of realised that, I might need another one or two people to bounce off, I chucked my hand up, and as did Lee, who's not here. So yeah, it was a really, really great opportunity to get involved in some capacity.
And I guess the reasoning behind the podcast was it's kind of such a, I guess, exciting space at the minute, with it just constantly growing and being able to, make it your own and having a platform to speak and engage with so many people. Yeah.
So what should a new listener expect if they tune into your podcast?
So yeah, being Australian, we're pretty easygoing, cruisy blokes. Sometimes we like having a drink while we record, so it's it's pretty open and free flowing. We like to so we like to bounce off each other and just kind of share and explain our passion to the game, as well as hopefully providing some valuable insight and knowledge.
The way that I would explain it, I reckon, just bouncing off what Nick said, is if you were just imagine you're in a bar with your mates and the game's on at the same time, or you're just talking about the last week of sports, and it's just very laid back and easy going. There's nothing too formal about it whatsoever. I think we make it like that, so because A, it comes easiest to us that way, and B, probably other people can probably relate to it a bit more if it's just like you're speaking with some of your mates about the what's been going on in the sports landscape lately, particularly with the NBA.
100%.
So we famously deviate. Right here's where we're gonna deviate.
Yeah, let's do
it. So Kate's looking at me like, really? I'm like, yes, Kate, we are going to deviate. So with you guys being in Australia, why the NBA? Like, well, how is this something like, where does your interest from the NBA? How did that start? Is that something that's shown over there on television, or? I mean, it seems like with the time difference, you might have to get up at some very strange hours to watch some of these games.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. And we've become more and more aware of that since we started doing a podcast. It's required quite a few early morning shifts. But for us, well, for me personally, I guess the kind of passion and love for the game started with Kobe. Just the allure of his, I guess, passion and drive for the game and competitiveness kind of drew me in. And then I guess that translated into, watching more basketball, taking more interest in it. And yeah, it really developed a love for it. In terms of kind of viewing it over here, it's not normally on just regular TV. We have to kind of, subscription TV and I guess League Pass or other options. But it is certainly growing here, and a lot more people are starting to take notice of the NBA as well as our professional league, the NBL down here. Mm-hmm. So it's a growing space.
Yeah, I mean, I first started getting into the NBA about 12 years ago, and that's when I started to notice, we get one or two games on our normal television programs. So we got a bit more exposure to it. And the more I watched of it, the more I enjoyed it. And, probably for the last 8 years or so, I've had a League Pass subscription so I can, have easy access to a lot of the games that are on. And, it might be difficult at times to tune into every game, but, we find the time when you love it as much as we do.
Part of the fun, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. But, it is a bit of a strange one because over here in Australia, our number one probably followed sports are AFL, which is Australian rules footy, cricket, rugby league in some states, but basketball is very, you'd be surprised how many people follow the NBA down here.
Yep.
It's funny you mentioned the AFL because it's kind of a similar thing over here. Is the AFL, Fox Sports over here actually started to show matches here, and they'll show one on Friday. It starts at 8 p.m. on Friday night, and then there's an 8 p.m. Saturday night. It's probably on right now. And it's gained kind of this cult following, probably much in the same way the NBA is catching on over here. And it's just there's been some people in the U.S. that have why have I never heard of this before now? This is the most amazing thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And when the pandemic first started in March, that was actually the last live sports in the in the developed world that we could see. So we were watching nothing is on TV, and then all of a sudden it's what is it? I don't care what this is. I'm watching it because it's live sports.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of the attraction to the AFL over there is for the simple fact that it's so physical and so fast, and it's not like the NFL where they're toe to the head in pads and helmets and stuff like that. It's quite raw. So yeah, I can see how it'd be quite an attractive sport for people over there.
It's funny too because I decided I was going to go on social media with my personal account and I started essentially petitioning the different clubs and saying, hey, why should I be a fan of yours? And I didn't get any responses. And finally, Essendon responded to me and said, hello. And I'm like, all right, you got me. I don't know anything about you, but you got
me. Easy to please.
Yeah, well, they're one of the most successful clubs we've got, so it's not a bad pick.
It seems like they've had a little bit of a drought the last 20 years or so, but it's funny because I wasn't expecting a response.
No, it's always nice those unexpected little responses.
I'm just Essendon has replied to your tweet. I'm like, wow, okay, you win.
Got to jump on when that happens.
So again, further deviating. I mean, you mentioned Kobe. Are you Lakers fans? Do you have a favorite team?
Absolutely. I'll try and lift it up. You've got the Lakers jumper on now. So actually currently playing Denver at the minute. So it's a nice fan to be a Lakers supporter.
Yeah, I'm a Boston fan. I don't know. People might say that I'm a bit of a bandwagoner, but I hopped on when they were doing well in the 2008 season, and around those years when KG and Paul Pierce and those blokes are at their peak, and been a fan ever since. And it's not looking great in the current series, unfortunately. But they seem like they're a good team to follow because they haven't really bottomed out at all. They've consistent. They've sort of rebuilt on the go, and I think it's a pretty good time to be a Boston fan with their young squad.
I mean, Kate lives outside of Chicago. I mean, do you consider yourself a Bulls fan?
Well, the last time I watched them was when they were good. So
like a lot of other fans.
So like 25 years ago.
Yeah.
The Last Dance was a bit of a kind of throwback to better times, weren't they?
I didn't even watch The Last Dance, but it's like I caught bits and pieces, and it's just like, growing up as a kid in the 90s and essentially
I thought you grew up as a kid in the 80s.
I was aware enough of what was going on around me as the Bulls dynasty was beginning. So my adolescence is watching Michael Jordan dominate.
Yeah.
And it's funny, you get these people debating the Jordan versus LeBron, who's better. And it's like, it's going to be a generational argument.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's like, I grew up watching and seeing Jordan. I saw Jordan play in person, and I've seen LeBron play in person too. And I mean, obviously he's fantastic, but for me, I mean, it's the generational thing. I'm on the Jordan bandwagon there.
Yeah, for sure.
There's nothing.
Especially seeing it live and in person.
You're nothing you can say will ever change my mind on that. I don't care if he wins a championship every year for the rest of his career, which he very well could.
Yeah.
Jordan was special. Like he
aliens.
He
did, didn't he?
Aliens. He's a brand. He's not a player. He's a brand.
It's incredible that one guy can transcend the game that much and just the most well-known figure on the planet, really. So. Yeah, an incredible time to be a basketball fan, especially near Chicago. In Chicago, very good times.
And it's funny though, like my story on how I became a fan of the team is I really didn't follow a team per se growing up. I mean, I was from Indiana. I watched the Pacers growing up. I saw Reggie Miller too, who was an amazing player. Doesn't get enough credit because he didn't get that ring.
True.
But I moved out to Phoenix a few years ago, so I'm like, you know what, I got to get on the bandwagon with one of the teams, and the Suns became my pick. And the Suns have been just god-awful for the last
Well, it's good. It gives you more credibility when they, get a ring. You joined in the darkest of times.
And I think you'll actually be looking back in about 5 to 6 years and be pretty happy with that pick because they've got a lot of good young talent on that Suns squad. So
Booker is just like, if it wasn't for the fact that he played on such lousy teams, he would be treated as a top tier superstar. In my opinion.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, agree.
And again, it's another person that you see him play in person, and you're just like, wow, this guy is the real deal. It's just for so many years, nobody else around him was.
Yeah. Even like DeAndre Ayton, he's going to be a problem for the league if he can get on top of his injuries. That guy can ball out. He's a gun.
And not get suspended either. That was
exactly.
They would have the 8-0 in the bubble was pretty amazing, but like they wouldn't have had to deal with that had that suspension not occurred. I mean, him losing him for 25 games and then he got hurt after he came back. It's just, they're going to be a playoff team next year.
Yeah, I hope so.
Finally,
exciting game. Yeah.
About time.
So, Kate, you want to move on to the next question?
I was wondering if you were done.
I have to go on my son's rant almost every other episode.
What is a piece of advice you would give to a new podcaster?
Yeah, sure. So I think to kind of quote Nike, it's just do it, because kind of procrastinating and kind of dwelling on it, thinking about what other people, how they're going to view it is the biggest thing that kind of for a while held me back. And it's really quite startling how supportive people are once you, kind of put yourself out. And But it's just a phenomenal experience that everyone should try. It might not be for everyone, but it is well worth trying.
I never realised actually how big the podcast community was until we started our own, and then we had all this support from other podcasts on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and whatnot. It's actually a massive community. But from my perspective, probably the best advice would be just to keep persisting with it, because I think the problem that a lot of podcasts might fall into is, you know, early days, you're probably not getting a heap of listens. You don't have a heap of followers either. So we kept persisting. Even when the NBA wasn't on, we had a weekly episode just making up stuff on the go pretty much. And we got through the period where, you know, we weren't having many listens and we didn't have many followers to now we've got a respectable amount of followers and listeners at the same time. And it feels well worth it, persisting through those sort of lower times and, you know, the start of the podcast, I suppose.
Certainly.
That's an awesome thing to say, because it's, you know, we with our partners now, we're up to, I think it's 122 is the number, and about 88 or 89 of them have a podcast. And, you know, we've lost some of them. I mean, they've given up on their shows, which, you know, that's going to happen. But it's you got to understand that mindset that when you get started, nobody's going to listen. I mean, that just you're gonna have your friends, your family, and that's about it. And
my mom doesn't listen to our show.
Except for Kate's mom, who won't listen to the show. I'm gonna say that's Kate's fault, not my fault. I've never actually met your mother.
Yeah. No, without doubt.
But yeah, and it's you know, the best part that we tell people is that, you know, while nobody's listening, you know, episode 1, you don't know what you're doing. You know, we've done 60 something of these now. We still don't know what we're doing, and you know, and as nobody's listening, that's the time to make the mistakes, to screw up the production, to figure out how to, you know, set up your microphones and broadcast it. So that's great advice.
Yeah, no, it's certainly a journey, but we're kind of thrilled with, you know, persevering, because it is so rewarding once you get into it.
And I mean, from our perspective as well, I don't think we would have given up on it for the simple fact that, and I've said this to Nick and Lee before, but we just love talking about the basketball. If we're being recorded or not, you know, we still have these conversations off the mic and off air, I guess. So we still would have done the episodes just for the simple fact that it's an hour per week where we can sort of, you know, recap everything that's been going on, because, you know, we just really enjoy, you know, talking about it, to be honest with you. It's that simple.
Definitely. Yeah. Well said.
So to start wrapping this up, where can we find your show? Where can we find your social media?
Yeah, so certainly you can find the podcast on all major kind of podcasting platforms: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, all the rest under the Daily Dribble. As well, our social channels, mainly Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, can all be found at the Daily Dribble 23. Yeah.
Awesome. Kate, any final words before you go to bed?
Fair.
Oh, no. We're good.
Excellent.
Awesome. Nick, Ro, thanks again for being on the show. Again, the show is the Daily Dribble. Subscribe today wherever you find your favorite podcast, and also available on stadiumscene.tv. So for everyone else, thanks for watching and listening. Check us out at stadiumscene.tv for us and many other great episodes of partners of ours, at Stadium Scene on Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest, and Stadium_Scene on Instagram. And we'll see you next time.